Most guys that start self-improvement with good intentions actually end up quitting 90% of the time in just a few months. I'm going to share with you how you can be that rare 10% that actually sticks to it and makes it a lifestyle. So the first thing we have to address is knowing why you're doing it. You guys have to understand that you're never going to do something consistently or for a long time or for long enough to actually get results from it without a strong reason to do it. So let's say there's a particular result that you want. You want to achieve a particular goal. You want your dream body. Why? Do you want it because other people have it? Do you want it because it's popular? Do you want it because you're embarrassed of your body right now? Do you want it to gain confidence? Do you want it to attract girls? Why do you want it? And you have to ask yourself this and dig very deep. Some people can start doing something and they may or may not stick to it. They might last longer than you. Someone like myself, I physically cannot do something if it doesn't make sense to me why I am doing it. When I was in school and I didn't understand why am I doing this class, I would literally get minimum grades, which is a 50% passing grade. While on the other hand, if I was in a class that I actually knew is going to be useful for me and I knew all the reasons behind it, I will get the highest possible marks in there. This is just how people work. You need a strong reason to do it. It cannot be someone else's influence. It cannot be your parents. It can't be your friends. It can't be your girlfriends, wives. It has to be coming from yourself, from a very, very deep place. So just to share with you guys an example of why did I start going to the gym? I was generally physically active all my life. I would even go to the gym, hit some random weights when I was a kid, 12 years old, 13 years old. My friend and I would go. We would just have fun there. We didn't have any goals or plans in mind. But at one point, something just switched. I've had enough. I remember this moment very clearly. I was about 15 and a half years old, and up until that point, I wasn't a very big kid. In fact, I was the opposite. I was always the youngest person, but also the smallest person. The shortest, thinnest, smallest person in my class. Naturally, that already doesn't get you very far in school. It doesn't get you to be part of the popular kids club. It doesn't get you very many friends that you want to be friends with. But what also used to happen is whenever someone would refer to me, it would always be that small kid. Why are you so skinny? Look, I can put my fingers around your arm. Even people who weren't trying to be mean. I remember in my car mechanics class where some things would be difficult to do. You would need more strength, a larger body weight to move something. And my teacher in that class was a very nice guy. He'd always make comments, "You need to eat more burgers, Maxim. You need to put on some more weight." While of course I had nothing against him. He was just pointing out the truth. How do you think that feels when that gets announced in front of others? Whenever I was in gym class, no one would pick me to be on their team. Whenever people would decide and make teams, I was always the last guy to be chosen for most activities. It's not because I couldn't run fast. It was simply because I look like I'm not a physically active person. Like I can't do shit. Of course, the girl aspect, none of the girls would even look my way. There were those naturally larger guys that hit their growth spurts much earlier, and they would always get all the girls. They would go and play football. So, all in all those comments of chicken arms, little kid, never having any presence, that's what drove me to make a decision that I'm gonna get bigger once and for all. Now, at that point, I didn't even know how. I used to watch Dragon Ball Z. Some of you guys probably know that anime. And the main character, Goku, would always eat a shit ton and train a shit ton. So that's what I thought was the first step. You know what? I'm just gonna train like Goku. Eventually, I found myself on bodybuilding sites. I started researching how this actually works. How do you grow? How do you put on mass? And started going at it consistently. And to this day, over 10 years later, I'm still in the gym every day. So going back to understanding why you want a certain result, it can come from any need. It doesn't have to be because you were bullied for something, or it could be. It doesn't always have to be from a negative means. Maybe you just feel you want to be better. The person that thinks it would be nice to get big, it would be nice to go to the gym, it would be nice to get a good looking body, is always going to be outworked by the person who actually needs it. They can't live without it. So first, establish a strong reason to do it. Second thing is chasing fast results. One thing you need to understand is forget about fast results. Forget about it. Don't for a second even think about how you want to get quick results. I want a six-pack in 2 months. I want to get that body in a year. Can I do it in a year? Can I do it in 6 months? Maybe you want to find a way to make a lot of money quick. Forget about it. You're going to waste your time. There is no such thing as get rich quick. There's no such thing as fast results. Anything worthwhile is going to take time and effort. So when you set yourself up on track to a goal that you want to achieve, especially if it's significant, don't worry about the results. You need to think in decades. If I start this right now, in 10 years from now, where am I going to be? Forget about the timeline of the results you want. Of course, it's good to set goals and benchmarks. That's completely fine, and track your progress. But to tell yourself, I want to get a six-pack in the next 4 weeks before summer, that's the fastest way to not get a six-pack. You see what ends up happening with the mentality of the people who want fast results. Naturally, all of us want the results immediately. That's why we want it. But what happens is you start looking for shortcuts. And shortcuts will never deliver the real thing. It's exactly that. It's a shortcut. It doesn't give you the actual progress. If something's quick, it's also quick to go. The person who won the lottery is back to being broke the next year because they never established the habits that it would take to generate and keep those sums of money. The person that gets a quick six-pack and they fast for a month and lose a bunch of fat and suddenly they're in shape or they're a little bit leaner, guess what? They're going to be fat before you know it. Back to where they were. Real change takes time. So moving forward, you only think in years, 5 years, 10 years. And the best part is that if you think in decades and you focus on the process, outcome is inevitable. The results are a byproduct of the process. And what would start to happen is you would actually start to see results sooner than you would have expected, because your expectation is in 10 years. I'm sure you know those people in your life, this could even be you, that at one point gets motivated to achieve a goal. And they say they'll start on the 1st of the month, or on their birthday, or the best one yet, the New Year's resolution. Or people wait, especially across the holiday period, to do all the worst habits possible, and then suddenly, on the 1st of the year, they will completely change their life. They will become a new person. And obviously you guys know what happens. That never works. After 3 weeks, the people are back to doing whatever they were doing, whether it was the 1st of the month, whether it was a birthday, whatever timeline people set. So it's also very important to start immediately as you set a goal. Your goal start date should have no bearing on what time of the year it is. The third reason why people can't stay on the grind is because they have no real plan. Grinding without a plan is like running on a treadmill. No matter how fast you run, your displacement is going to always be zero. You didn't actually go anywhere. And that's fine if you're starting there. It's better than doing nothing. Because back when I started doing construction, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just kind of doing stuff. I would go and work as much as possible. I'd get another job. I will do Uber Eats on the side after work. I would listen to random audiobooks that I thought were somewhat useful. I would always go to the gym. I would just try to fill my day with everything possible that I thought is going to get me better. Some things did, some things didn't. Still, you gain experience. But I ran into a problem. And the biggest problem was, I've already maxed out my day. I have maxed out the amount of hours I can possibly work and put into different tasks. So that means my income will start to stagnate. How long can I do this for? Am I going to be able to do this when I have a family? Working every possible waking hour? No. I started to think about how can I get myself into a job or a line of work that can disconnect my time invested from the money I earn. I don't want it to be directly linked. So the point of this, I started getting a lot closer to actually working on things that make a difference, that make progress in your life actually. Something that once you invest enough time and effort into it, will pay you in the future. Without a plan or knowing the direction you're going in, you'll end up in the wrong direction. Think about it. Imagine driving very fast with no target in mind, with no destination in mind. How are you ever going to get there? You won't. That's the answer. So since you already know the results you want, you need to create an actionable plan to get you there. There has to be no guesswork. You can't just leave it off at, I'll just kind of figure it out along the way. It has to be definite. You need to know what you're gonna do every step of the way. Now, it's fine if you don't know all the intricacies. You don't yet know what you don't know. That's okay. You will fill in between the lines. But everything you already know, you have to put on paper. You have to implement into a plan. Because as soon as you put a plan together and you look at it and you see a clear path to your goal, that's when you know your plan is sound. That's a solid plan. Now, it may not always go to plan and you might have to adjust along the way. But the point is, you see a path. You see a way to get there. So this is the most common things I notice about people who have big dreams and goals, but they never actually can commit to anything. It is always a lack of one of the three things I just mentioned. Either a person doesn't have a strong enough reason to do it, a person just wanted quick results, or they have no plan. Usually it's a combination of the three. But you have to check every single box to make sure that you're on track to your goal. Every time that I've set out a goal and didn't hit it, I can always track back to which of the 3 points that I just mentioned was lacking. So now when I do set out goals for myself, I always know exactly why I'm doing it, making sure that I'm focused on the process, and how I'm actually going to do it. Without that, don't bother. It's not going to happen. So as a quick backstory, when I ran a business with employees, certain employees would always come up to me and ask me, how do I grow in my field? How can I progress? I want to get there. I want to be a manager. I want to be a supervisor. I want to get to the next step. And I would tell them this is what you should do. This is what you should focus on. But I found myself repeating the same thing to the exact same people every couple weeks because they were making no progress. It's not that they didn't want to get there. It's that they didn't have a strong enough reason to get there a lot of the times. Because at one point I stopped telling them how to get there and I started asking them, why? Why do you want to be there? Okay, you're now a manager. What's the point? And very often, they couldn't answer me. They would just look at me, dumbfounded. Well, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean? Why would I want to be a manager? It, it, it's it's what? It's cool. Everyone should want to be that way. And they would just look at me like, why am I even asking them that question? Of course, I want to be a supervisor. I want to be in the next level position. Why? Do you enjoy having power over people? No. Do you want to make more money? Would be nice, yeah. Do you want to impress your family? Yeah, that would be nice. That would shut them up. Not a single person had a strong reason as to why they wanted to get themselves into a higher position. It was all surface level. It would just be nice to. It would be nice to be there. It would be a nice to have, not a must have. And that's why a lot of them couldn't make it there.